Hi, welcome to the Slices of Life reading today. I'm Sandra. I facilitate the Memoir Writing for Seniors program through the Powell River Public Library. Today's story is coming from the electronic e-book publication that the library published in 2016. The title is Taboo. So all of the seniors submitted memoirs, true stories from their life. With the theme of taboo. So today's story is by Kate Day, and she is a retired teacher from Britain who lives in Powell River with her husband. And she usually is writing about her many very interesting travels, both as a teacher and a mother of her family. But this story that she submitted for Taboo is from her childhood, and it's called Spots. I was almost 5 years old and developing leprosy fast. In between teaching us to read, write, and do sums, Sister Imelda, our convent kindergarten teacher, regaled us with vivid tales of far-off lands in which the dreaded disease of leprosy loomed large. These stories were usually accompanied by dramatic pictures of people without fingers or toes. These poor people could not be touched and were hidden away, never to be seen again. Apparently, leprosy started with a little white spot, and I had just such a tiny white spot right in the middle of my palm. If I told anyone, I would be whisked away and have to watch my fingers and toes drop off all by myself. I still played daily with my friends, Kathleen and Dorothy, roaming the coal hills around Six Bells, our Welsh mining community, never breathing a word to either of them of my impending doom, and all the while checking my little white spot. "What's the matter with your hand, darling?" asked my father one morning at breakfast. "It seems to be bothering you." He grasped my hand, examining it closely. "Oh, just a little piece of dry skin," he smiled, and then pulled my little white spot clean away, revealing healthy pink palm underneath. I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Now nobody would ever know how narrowly I had escaped leprosy. The next year, spots once again featured memorably in my life. It was an afternoon in the late spring, and I had not felt well all day. Even sliding down the nearby mountain on pieces of cardboard with Dorothy and Kathleen had not made me feel better. Then my head ached, my throat hurt, and worst of all, I was covered in hundreds of little pink spots. "It's scarlet fever, I'm afraid," pronounced Uncle Doc, our doctor and close family friend, patting my hand. "And it's highly infectious," he added, looking gravely at my parents. I had a 2-month-old baby brother and a delicate little sister who only a few weeks before had almost died from some horrible intestinal illness. Scarlet fever posed too great a risk to my siblings, so I was sent away to an isolation hospital for a 3-week stay. I found myself deep in the Welsh countryside in a long, green-painted children's ward. When my parents visited, they could only speak to me through a partially open window, with hugs and kisses strictly prohibited. But the doctors and nurses were kind, and I was not unhappy. About 2 weeks into my stay, Billy arrived in the bed opposite me. He was 15, much older than the rest of us, and he didn't talk much. One night, I saw Billy get quietly out of bed. It was dusk, and everyone else was asleep. The night nurse, having made her rounds, had left the ward. I watched as he pulled a jumper on over his pajamas and stuck his bare white feet into heavy black shoes. "Where are you going, Billy?" I whispered, sitting up in bed. He put his fingers to his lips. "Shh, I'm leaving. I can't stay here. I'm running away, and you mustn't tell anyone. Do you absolutely promise?" I stared at him, thrilled. Lots of people in my storybooks ran away, and I also knew all about promises. "I promise," I said fervently, feeling very important. He smiled at me and was gone. I curled myself up into an excited ball and shut my eyes. Time passed, and it was now completely dark. I heard the nurse come back and forth to check the ward, and all that was well. Billy had pulled his bedclothes up high over his pillow, and she never noticed that he had gone. Try as I might, I could not sleep. Poor Billy was out there, alone in the dark, and with no socks. He would be so cold and frightened, and I was the only person in the whole wide world who knew that he had ran away. Suddenly, I could bear it no longer. "Nurse! Nurse!" I called in my quietest loud voice. "Whatever is it, lovey?" she answered, hurrying to my bedside. "It's Billy," I blurted out. "He's gone. He really has. He's run away." Nurse checked Billy's bed, and then, to my horror, she burst into tears and ran from the ward. Billy had indeed gone, escaping through the bathroom window. A search party was quickly dispatched, and he was soon found, cold and damp, but otherwise unharmed. I was told they had brought him back to the hospital, but I never saw Billy again. The following morning, I awoke to find myself once again completely covered in spots. I had developed chicken pox on top of my scarlet fever. I was due to leave the hospital in a couple of days, but I still had a new baby brother and a delicate little sister at home, and here I was, infectious all over again. I was gently informed that I could not return to my family for at least another 2 weeks. I was expected to be very brave, and of course there would be treats when my long incarceration was finally over. Alone in the hospital bathroom, I sorrowfully surveyed my spotty 6-year-old self in the mirror and heaved a sigh of resignation. I thought of Billy and sighed again. What else could I expect? I had, after all, broken my first ever solemn promise. Then the sad face in the mirror smiled at me, as I suddenly realized that things could be worse. After all, I still had my fingers and toes. That's the end of Spots by Kate Day. Thank you for listening today.